afternoon everyone present over here. QNX welcomes you to the webinar on documents required for the implementation of Information Security Management System, which is ISMS. I am Naveen Kesharwani, host for the today's webinar. I am working as a business manager over here at QNX. Talking about my organization, QNX. QNX is a management consulting company having experience of more than 25 years with 350 plus clients present in more than 19 countries. We work in more than 19 countries. For information security, we partner with the leading organization for advisory or consulting services. We are also partner organization for CMMI Institute, US. In 2016, we were ranked among top 10 CMMI Institute partners worldwide. Now, I would like to introduce the presenters of today's session, Mr. Rajendra Pratap. Hello, sir.
Hi, Naveen.
Talking about him, Mr. Rajendra Pratap is heading InfoSecure, Information Security Division of QNX. So now the session is to you.
Thank you, Naveen. Good afternoon, everyone. This session is regarding mandatory documents required for ISO 27001. Now, here it is very important to set the expectation of this session right. So, I am talking here about mandatory documents. Mandatory documents means those documents which are anyways mandatory and are required while you are implementing ISO 27001:2013 and you are looking forward I am able to see some messages where the participants are not able to hear anything. So kindly let me know if all of you are not able to hear anything, or is it a problem with some specific people? Okay, sure, I will continue. Meanwhile, if there is any problem, kindly write in chat box. We will be looking at it and we will be resolving it at that moment only. So, ISO 27001 or per se any other management system requires certain documents to get prepared, and here in ISO 27001 as well, there are certain mandatory documents that needs to be prepared. So even the standard says that these are not the only documents that needs to be prepared. The extent of documentation has to be decided by the organization. Now mandatory documents, if you go to the standard of ISO 27001:2013, you will find out that at many places it is written that documented information should be there. Now that documented information, when we talk about, that are required. Apart from them, we need other documents also. But those documents you will get to know after you do risk assessment and prepare SOA. So after preparation of SOA, we will need to prepare some other documents as well. But the documents which I am going to talk about in this session are mandatory documents and that are anyways required. Okay. So this is kind of checklist of the documents that you can start preparing after this session for ISO 27001:2013. So moving to next slide, let's revise the standard ISO 27001:2013 and its structure. It has 7 clauses and 14 controls. So if we talk about clause number 4, it is context of organization. Clause number 5 is leadership. Clause number 6 is planning. Clause number 7 is support. Clause number 8 talks about operations. 9 talks about performance evaluation, and 10 is improvement. As you all know, it is based on PDCA cycle. Similarly, if we go to control, there are 14 controls, A5 to 18. Talks about information security policy, organization of information security, human resource security, asset management, access control, cryptography, physical and environmental security, operations security, communication security, system acquisition, development and maintenance, supplier relationships, information security incident management, information security aspects of business continuity management, and compliances. So this is all about 27,213. Now we will go into each clause and each control to find out which all documents are required. So if we look at clause number 4, which is context of the organization, and if you have standard, you can refer to that also, and I have referred that same clause here in my presentation. Clause 4.3 says the scope of document shall be available as documented information. This word documented information is quite important, and you will be seeing it almost at all the places in our talk now in next 40-45 minutes. So it is saying that scope should be documented, and hence we need a scope document, right? Similarly, now what is there in the scope document, that we will cover in some other presentation. Right now what we are focusing upon is, we are right now preparing a checklist of the documents, mandatory documents required. What is there in that document, or what should be in that document, we can have a separate session on that. So now clause number 5, leadership. It talks about the information security policy shall be available as documented information, right? Generally, organizations prepare policy and objectives document together. If you look at clause 6.2 in planning, here I am marking it here, this clause 6.2, it says the organization shall retain documented information on the information security objectives. So generally, organizations create a document having policy and objectives together. Now moving to clause number 6.1.2, the organization shall retain documented information. Again here the term documented information, we will come across this term again and again. The organization shall retain documented information about the information security risk assessment process. Here we have to write how we are doing the risk assessment. The methodology of risk assessment needs to be cleared in this document. We have to write the process of risk assessment. Similarly, in 6.1.3, again you will come across the term documented information, and here we will be writing the process of risk treatment. So 6.1.2 risk assessment process, 6.1.3 risk treatment process. Now we'll move to 6.1.3d, produce a statement of applicability. Though documented information is not written here, but in our due course of doing risk assessment, we come up with SOA, statement of applicability, and that is the document that is required, though documented information is not written here. So at a couple of places documented information is not written, but then also we need to have certain documents for the same. Now Then 6.1.3e, here also documented information is not written, but formulate an information security risk treatment plan. So here we have to create a risk treatment plan. Okay, so I have talked about clause number 4, 5 and 6. So document types written over there: scope document, policy and objectives document, risk assessment process, risk treatment process, SOA, risk treatment plan. These are the documents required from clause number 4, 5 and 6. Moving forward, now we move to clause number 7, and clause number 7 talks about support. So here clause number 7.2d, clause number 7.2 talks about competence of the people involved in implementation of information security in your organization. So clause number 7.d says retain appropriate documented information as evidence of competence. Now this says that you should have a documented information where the competence of the people involved in ISMS implementation are there. So that can be sure. I will be marking it. I will be marking it yellow vertically, not horizontally, for sure. Thank you, Mr. Balasubramanian. Thank you so much. So, retain appropriate documented information as evidence of competence. Now, what can be the evidence of competence? It can be record of training. You might be training your internal people on information security. That can be one thing. Their skills, or they might have previous experience in information security that you might want to record, and the qualification if some of them has previous qualification related to information security. So records of training, skills, experiences and qualifications of the people involved in information security implementation shall be there. This is what 7.2d talks about. 7.5 itself, whole clause is about documented information. What it says is you have to write a procedure to control your documents and your records. Whatever records and documents you have in your organization, you have to control them and you have to write a procedure for that. Okay. Now moving to clause number 8, which is operations. Clause number 8.2 talks about after you complete a risk assessment, you need to have a risk assessment report. So this is evidence. Risk assessment report is evidence is for clause number 8.2. This is a document type that you need to produce. Clause number 8.3 talks about the organization shall retain documented information of the results of the information security treatment. Now this is here it's little tricky that it says that you should have a result of information security treatment documented. We have prepared a risk treatment plan before. Now we will be adding to risk treatment plan for this clause if we have treated all those risks and by when. So we need to add one more column and we have to write that this is a planned date and this is a completed date, and accordingly the auditor who will come for audit, or if you are doing internal audit, will check internally that whether actually whatever is there in treatment plan as per planned date and actual date has been completed or not. That thing this clause number 8.3 is talking about. Now we move to clause number 9 that we call performance evaluation. Clause number 9.1 talks about the organization shall retain appropriate documented information and evidence of monitoring and measurement results. Generally in this clause number 9.1, organization gets confused with results of internal audit. They generally write internal audit report over here in clause number 9.1. It is not the case. Here you have to measure your objectives and monitor your objectives. So here it is very important to, in the document where you have already written your policies and objectives, you can add columns to that in the same document and start measuring those objectives. You can have some matrix for all the objectives which you have defined. You can have a matrix and you can start measuring that. Now only catch here is that you have to define the frequency. You have to define who is going to do it. Please remember, in all the documents which we prepare in information security or any management system, 5 W's and 1 H is very important. Who, what, when, where and why and how. Please keep in mind these 5 W's and 1 H while you are creating a document. So now we'll move to clause number 9.2. Retain documented information and evidence of audit program and the audit result. Now what we generally do, we conduct internal audits, we have internal audit report, but what is missing is internal audit program. We have to make an internal audit program first, that at what interval we will be doing the audit, who will be doing the audit, and what will be the frequency of the audit. So before doing internal audit, we need to have a program for internal audit. Suppose we have an annual program for internal audit, that every quarter we will be doing the internal audit. Some concerned person will be doing that, the report will be generated by this point of time. So 9.2 talks about not only result of internal audit, not only internal audit report, it also talks about internal audit program. So we have to create another document also called internal audit program. We have to prepare a program for internal audit. Now clause 9.3, this talks about the organizations shall retain documented information as evidence of the results of management reviews. Here MOM of MRM meetings are important. If you go to clause 9.3, you will find out there are 8 topics that needs to be covered in MRM and that needs to be documented in MOM. Without that, this document is not complete, and if this document is not complete, it's a minor compliance, non-compliance, and if it is at all not complete, if this document is not there at all, it's a major compliance, major non-compliance, sorry. So now we'll move to clause number 10, which talks about improvement. So the organization shall have some corrective action plan. So if you will see, shall retain a documented information. Documented information is written over here. If you can see documented information, and it talks about the nature of non-conformities and any subsequent action taken and result of the corrective actions. So these two things we need to document over here in clause number 10. Now we have completed the clauses, clause 4 to clause 10, and we have talked about the documents that those are required to for these clauses, the mandatory documents. Now again we will do a recap over here of clauses. So clause number 4, we require scope document. Clause number 5, we require policy and objectives document. In clause number 6, we will need risk assessment methodology, that is a process, risk treatment methodology, that is risk treatment process, a statement of applicability, SOA, risk treatment plan, and in clause 7, we'll need records of training, skills, experiences and qualifications of the people involved in information security, procedures for document control and controls for managing records, risk assessment report, risk treatment plan, updated one, then measurement and monitoring of objectives, then internal audit program and internal audit report, they are both separate, then MOM of MRM meetings and corrective action plan. Now we'll move to clauses in controls, the annexure which is there in ISO 27001 2013. Okay, so here now if you go randomly and check the standard and you just type documented information in Control F, every place where you read documented information, we need document for that. Okay, so if you go to clause 8.1.3, you will find out that rules for the acceptable use of information and of asset associated with the information and information processing facilities shall be identified, documented. The documented word is coming over here, and implemented. So here we need to have, first of all, to do this, to know that what is the acceptable use of which asset, we need to first have asset inventory. So we have to prepare asset inventory, that is very important. This asset inventory is also important for risk assessment as well. So this document we need to create, and then we have to define rule for acceptable use for those assets. Okay, then clause 8.9.1.1 talks about access control policy. It says an access control policy shall be established, documented. Document is the keyword here. Documented and reviewed based on business and information security requirements. Documented is important word over here. So here we need to have policy documents. Okay. Now you can have all the policy documents together. We have talked about information security policy and objectives in our previous slides. Here we have talked about policy and objectives document. You can have all the policies together, no problem. Now what other policies would be there? That will come into picture when you will have your SOA ready. That if you need password policy, if you need access control policy, so these kind of policies, with whatever policy you need, that will be clear from SOA. Then documented operating procedures, 8.12.1.1. Operating procedures shall be documented. Here again the important word documented is coming, and made available to all users who need them. There is one query called what is SOA? SOA is statement of applicability. This comes after we do risk assessment. We will talk about it in detail in our other presentation. Now documented operating procedure. So here it is saying operating procedure shall be documented and made available to all users who need them. So we need to prepare SOPs for our operations. Similarly, 8.12.4.1 called event logging. Here there is no word called document written. Please mind it. In 12.4.1 there is no word like documents, but then it is saying we have to prepare logs. Similarly, 12.4.3 also it is saying we need to prepare logs. Logs we have to prepare, and that we have to show. So logs are also a form of document. So that's why we have included here. These are also mandatory things. So log of user activity, exceptions and security events, and log of user activities, exceptions and security events. Both the place we need to produce a log. Okay. Now in 13.2.4, confidentiality or non-disclosure agreements. Here it is saying that requirements for confidentiality or non-disclosure agreements reflecting the organization's needs for the protection of information shall be identified, regularly reviewed and documented. Again, the important point is documented. So we have to prepare NDAs when we are signing with parties around us, whom we are dealing with, whom we are dealing, and information security sensitive matter, and if we are dealing with them, we need to have NDAs. Now, if your organization is into software development and you are developing something, then A14.2.5 says secure system engineering principles. Here, principles for engineering secure systems shall be established, documented. Here again the term documented is coming. So we need to document the principles for engineering secure systems. But this is applicable to generally to the software development environment. Now we'll move to another clause A15.1.1, which calls information security policy for supplier relations. So here there are two things. One is supplier security policy. What policy your organization has for your suppliers, that policy needs to be defined, first thing. Second thing, we need to have NDAs. Okay. Then 16.1.5 talks about incident management. So we need to have incident management procedure documented. That is one important thing. A 17.1.2 talks about information security continuity. So here we need to have a business continuity procedures. In the description, in clause description, you will always be seeing documented. So everywhere where there is something written documented, we need to have that document at place, and it's mandatory. Okay. Now 18.1.1 talks about legislation and contractual requirement. So here we have to find that in our industry, in whomsoever industry we are working, what are legislative, statutory, regulatory and contractual requirement which organization has to follow. So we need to identify that, document that, and kept up to date. So statutory, regulatory and contractual requirement we have to find out. So these are the documents that are required in clauses of controls. We will go back and see what all documents are there. So 8.1.3 talks about asset inventory and rules of acceptable use. 9.1.1 talks about policy documents. 12.1.1 talks about SOPs. 12.4.1 and 12.4.3 talks about logs. 13.2.4 talks about NDAs. 14.2.5 talks about secure system engineering principles. 15.1.1 talks about supplier security policy and NDAs again. 16.1.5 talks about incident management procedure. 17.1.2 talks about business continuity procedure, and 18.1.1 talks about statutory, regulatory and contractual requirement. So in total, if we see how many documents we require as mandatory one, so scope document is 1, policy and objective document 2, risk assessment methodology or procedure 3, risk treatment procedure 4, SOA 5, risk treatment plan 6, records of training, skill and experience and qualification 7, procedure for document control and control of managing records 8, risk assessment report 9, risk treatment plan updated one, it's 9 we can say because we have already covered it over there. Measuring and monitoring of the objectives 10, internal audit program 11, internal audit report 12, MOM of MRM meetings 13 and corrective action plan 14, asset inventory 15th document, rules of acceptable use 16, policy documents you can cover over there, information security and objectives there only, that policy document. We can have one policy document for the same. 16 SOPs, 17 logs of both, or you can have it in one also, 18 NDAs, 19 secure system engineering principle, 20 supplier security policy, 21 NDA is already covered, incident management procedure, 22 business continuity procedure, 23 and statutory, regulatory and contractual requirement, 24. So these are the 24 items that we need to have as mandatory documents while we are implementing information security management system ISO 27001:2013. So thank you so much. This is what from my side, and the floor is open for questions. So if do you have any queries, kindly shoot it down over here.
So thank you, sir, for the session. So if you have any questions, you can write in the chat box. We have we are in short of time, so please make sure that you each person write at least only one question. Other questions you can mail us on the mail ID. Sir, please open the mail ID which we have written.
Yeah, sure.
For any other for any other questions of other details, you can mail us here. Your questions will be addressed over there.
So I will be taking one question from Mr. Balasubramanian. He is telling that example of incidents. So suppose you have one control, physical security control, Mr. Balasubramanian, at your office, that everyone who is entering your office needs to, the outsider needs to sign in the document over there, in register, entry register. Everyone who is outsider needs to sign over there. Now this is the process you have, and this is the control you have, and when audit happens, or without audit also, someone gets to know that someone has entered without signing over there in that entry register. This is an incident. This is information security incident, because our control has failed. Control had weakness. Thank you. Mr. Kapil, this your question about certification consulting, Naveen will take it over with you separately.
Yes, sir. You can mail us, and we'll get. I'll try to get connected to you, and we will definitely help you with that with your query. Any other questions?
Yeah, Mr. Nagaprasanna, I will be telling you those points. You can also check it into standard if you have. I will be opening the standard and will be telling you in detail about it. Meanwhile, if you have Mr. Nagaprasanna, we can connect again because I can tell you in detail what is written over there. So if you want, we can have a chat later also on that, if you're fine with that.
Okay. Please write questions in the chat box. We will be answering it shortly. And if you have, if you want some other details, you can mail us on the mail ID mentioned over here. Naveen@qnixinfotech.com, which is my mail ID, and Gunjar@qnixinfotech.com, which is my colleague's ID. We both look into InfoSecure.